For food, yes. What else? What kind of food? Hmm? Could you get me some water? Yeah. Warm. Okay. All right. Um, this is my dish. I have this dish for many, many years. Um, well, and so do you think that this dish is a perfect dish? Huh? Build it better than nothing. Did you actually look at the dish? Why not? Mm. So it's a perfect dish. So as far as okay, pass the dish around again. Take a look at the dish. Oh, did you see anything? No? That's good. Um, so in your mind, this dish is a perfect dish. Yes? As I said, I have this dish for many, many years. But actually, this dish has a flaw. You see, you were not looking for the flaw in the dish. You are not looking for faults in the dish. You're looking at the dish, it looks perfectly fine. It can do the job of what the dish requires. However, this dish is not a perfect dish. Look at it again. Did you see it? No. Rowena, did you see it? What is the design of the plate? Welcome, welcome, welcome. CJ, did you see it? Did you see it, no, Naomi? Did you see it? Michelle? You didn't see it, right? Okay. The point that I want to make is that you would not see a fault unless you're looking for it. All right? There are quality inspectors. If you're working in a factory, there are people who their job is to look for the quality. If you're looking in a garment factory, there are people who their job is to find the fabric with the fault. That's their job. They look for faults. Okay? And they will find the fault or the flaw in the jeans or the shirt or whatever is being manufactured, and they will put it aside. And those are considered seconds. This dish has a flaw. It has a flaw. But you would not see it because you're not looking for it. It looks like a perfect, but if I hold it up to you, look at this side of the dish. Look at the fray here. And then I turn it over and look at here. Yes? Look at this side, and then look at this side. There is a flaw right here. Between here and here, it's not even. There is a flaw with this dish. However, this dish is perfect. Do you know why? Why is it perfect? It's still usable. The function for which it was made, it can still be used for that, right? Not because it has a design flaw. It has a design flaw right here, and you can see the difference here. Difference here, and the difference here. But if you do not, so I ate from this dish for years, and I never noticed that this dish has a flaw until recently. The topic of my sermon this morning is captioned, "What is your impediment?" What is your impediment? Is your impediment real? Get a feedback. Is your impediment real, or is it just an excuse? Impediment means something that hinders you, something that prevents you from being a good runner. All right? Let's say you want to be a good runner, but you're not. You burn out in a couple of in 2 minutes. You run, and you cannot run longer than 2 minutes. All right? But you still can run. Yeah? You still can run. What is your impediment? Is your impediment a real thing, or is it just something that you take and make an excuse? Let us go to our scripture reading. Our scripture reading. Jeremiah was called to be a prophet. He was called to be a prophet. And what was Jeremiah's excuse? What is your impediment? This is the question this morning. What is your impediment? What do you think prevents you from doing the will of God? What do you think prevents you from being a true witness? Jeremiah, chapter 1. Verses 4 to 9. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Apart, I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." So here Jeremiah responds, "Sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child." Yeah? I am only a child. So Jeremiah's excuse was, I am little, I am small, I cannot talk to big people. I am unable to be a prophet. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am only a child. You must go to everyone I send you, and to say whatever I commanded you. Do not be afraid of them. All right? Do not be afraid of them. The King James Version says, do not be afraid of their faces. For I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth. So, see, today I have appointed you over the nation and kingdom to uproot and tear down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. The Lord did not call, as it says, or as it said, the equipped. He equipped those whom he called. What is your impediment? What is your excuse? What is your justification for not being more productive? You remember Jacob, right? Jacob. He had a limp. How did Jacob got his limp? Jacob was wrestling with God. When you wrestle with somebody, you are actually an adversary to that person. You are fighting. There is resistance. There is resistance between you and your opponent. When you wrestle, there is resistance between you and your opponent. Jacob was resisting God. When we read the story, we do not think about Jacob was actually resisting God. We think that he just wrestled with God. No. Jacob was like an adversary towards God. He was resisting God. He was doing his own thing. Yes? From the time he demanded his brother to sell him his birthright for some soup, lentils, Jacob became very adversarial. Don't you think he was a bit covetous? We do not say that he was covetous. He was covetous. He saw his brother's birthright and he wanted it. He waited until he didn't wait. When his brother was at a point of being most vulnerable, Jacob pounced on that opportunity and asked him, demanded his birthright. You want my soup? Give me a birthright. Esau replied, okay, what good is my birthright if I die? You get it anyway. Okay, take it. He was doing his own thing. Then he tricked his father with the help of his mother, doing his own thing. Was the blessing promised him at that time? Yes, it was. The blessing to Jacob was promised, but Jacob could not have waited on God. He was helping God along. And then he was forced to flee because Esau was so distraught. Esau was so angry that he swore that as soon as my father died, I'm going to kill this guy. I cannot bear him anymore. He's dead. He's good as dead. And he spoke about it. And so his mother had to ship him off to meet his uncle Laban. And there, again, we may fault Laban, but mind you, Jacob was not an innocent victim. Jacob was just as active in the wrestling with his uncle. He did not stay there and watch his uncle victimize him. No. He was engaged. He was there wrestling with his uncle. And in fact, he was cheating his uncle too. He was not an innocent victim. This story is very funny. I love Jacob. I love Jacob. It's one of my favorite. But he's one of my favorite Bible characters. He is cunning. He's witty. Oh, he was witty. Let me put it this way. Anyway, when it was time, God told him to leave. You see, if you look at Jacob's resume was not very good. No. He had a very terrible resume. It was not something that was impressive. If you know a guy like that, would you employ him? I robbed my brother for his property, and so forth and so forth. He was not an innocent victim, but God did not give up on him. In spite of who he was, in spite of all his flaw, God had made a promise to Jacob. The name Jacob meant supplanter, and he supplanted his brother. He wrestled with God. He was wrestling with God before that night. Before the night he encountered God personally, he was wrestling with God way long before that. Because Jacob would not take anything, as we will say, lying down. Not Jacob. He was a kind of tit-for-tat kind of guy. You think you're smarter than I am? Huh? Okay, I'll show you. Yeah. And so in that night of despair, in that night of desperation, in a night when he was most vulnerable, when he had separated himself from the crowd and from everyone else, Jacob found himself alone with somebody whom he thought was about to kill him. And Jacob wrestled with that person all night. Jacob was a strong person, a strong man. It not only strong, he had stamina. Yes, he would not give up. He would not let go. What would it take for you to give up? Sickness? Or what would it take for you to give up on God? Failure? Or what would it take for you to give up on God? Money? Because sometimes we do not give up on God because of failure. We give up on God because of success. And so God sometimes just give us enough. I do not want you to forget me. So sometimes the limitation we experience is not that God has failed us. It is just that God do not want to let go of you. Or it's just that God do not want you to let go of him. And so Jacob was there all night, and he was wrestling with this being for dear life. His purpose was survival and preservation. He was not going to die that night. And when he realized, when the being told him to let him go, Jacob realized that, hey, I wasn't wrestling with a man. I'm wrestling with a heavenly being. And he will make it again. At the point where the being is most vulnerable, let me go because the day breaks. I need to go now. Jacob said, no. You want me to let you go? I need a blessing. I will not let you go until you bless me. You bless me when I let you go. But before that, I'm going to hold on to you anyway. And then the angel asked him, what is your name? He said, Jacob. Supplanter, the schemer, the robber, the trickster. Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have wrestled with God and prevailed. And still he did not let him go, and so the angel had to strike him in the hip and put his leg out of place. And so Jacob, for the rest of his life, walked with a limp. And every time he take a step, he is reminded of that night when he wrestled with God. He was reminded of the night when he had to surrender to the will of God. And the night he was blessed. What is your impediment? What do you think prevents you from going all in with God? In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7 to 9, we have the story of Paul. Paul had a problem, and he said that he asked God 3 times to take it away. Lord, take it away. We do not know what it was. Paul called it a thorn in the flesh. Whatever the thorn was, I don't know. Paul meant to keep it secret, and he kept the secret. A thorn in the flesh. Was it sexual passion? Was it a blind eye? Was it being sickly. What was this thorn in the flesh? The thorn in the flesh. Let me emphasize that. The thorn in the flesh. And he was a guy who talked about the flesh a lot. Yes. Read Paul's word, and he spoke of the flesh and the weakness of the flesh. I do not want to bring Paul into disrepute, but he said he had a thorn in the flesh. And he asked God to take it away. And the Lord said what? What was the Lord's reply? Okay? No. What was his reply? My grace is sufficient. My strength is made perfect in strength. My strength is made perfect in weakness. That's what it says. Sometimes God allows a situation to seem incumbent upon us, to seem to hinder us, to seem to hold us back, to seem to humble us. It is not that the Lord doesn't care. Sometimes it's because he cares so much that he knows that if he removes it, you will fail to rely on him. You will fail to trust him. You will fail to serve him. My strength is sufficient. My grace, is sufficient. My strength is made perfect in weakness. What is your impediment? Moses said that he could not speak. Jeremiah, I am but a child. Moses, I cannot speak very well. God says, that's not a problem for me. It may be a problem for you, but it's not my problem. I can have somebody to speak for you. Your brother is a talker. He cannot stop talking. Why not? Use him. I will send him to speak on your behalf. But if you notice that during the Exodus, Moses still did a lot of the talking. He still did a lot of the talking. He could have talked. What is your impediment? Elijah was at a point where he was very depressed. He was even suicidal. Yeah? He wanted God to kill him. I have enough. I am the only one. Even when he was told that he was not the only one, he still insists that he was the only one. He was not. That's how depression was. He felt alone. He felt abandoned. He felt forsaken. And you notice that in the story of Elijah, God did not prevent him from running. You want to run? Run. Go ahead. Sooner or later, you're going to stop. Sooner or later, you will become tired. Run. Run as much as you want. And he did ran. Ran until he was so tired that he slept for 3 days under a tree. And then God came to him, sent an angel, came to him, and he did not scold him. He didn't say, so why are you running, man? What's your problem? You just had a big victory on the mountain, and now you're running like a crazy man. Why are you running? God didn't scold him. Well, what did he do? What did the angel do for Elijah under the broom tree? Do you remember the story? No? Princess, what did the angel did for Elijah under the broom tree while he was sleeping there? He gave him food. He woke him up and gave him food. I said, I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. He gave him food and gave him water to drink. And he didn't say, time for you to get up and run again. Because Elijah was so tired, he fell asleep again. And the angels stayed there with him until he awoke a second time, and he gave him some more food. Yeah. And then he was strengthened. He continued his journey. He continued running. The angel didn't stop him from running. You want to run. You run until you are contented. Run until you are satisfied, because the Lord is still on your trail. He is called the Hound of Heaven. He is going to find you where you are, when you are at your most vulnerable. He's going to be there to listen. So now he went and he hid himself in a cave. But he was still open to the voice of the Lord. And then there was this earthquake. He ran out of the cave, perhaps in fear, or perhaps out of curiosity. And he listened. He was listening to the voice of the Lord. He was listening for the voice of the Lord. But the voice was not in the earthquake. Then there was a wind. Then there was a fire. And still he did not hear the voice of the Lord. But then he heard someone whispering to him, Elijah. And the Lord had a conversation with him, and he repeated the same thing again. I'm the only one left. But you see, Elijah was in the wrong place. He was not. The Lord asked him, what are you doing here? If you're in a situation and someone asks you, what are you doing here? What are they asking you? Now, let's say I went to Ida, all right, and showed up at Kenita's class, right? The first thing she will ask me, what would be the first thing she will ask me? Why are you here? What are you doing? What are you doing here? I am not accustomed to seeing it. What are you doing here? And this question implies, aren't you supposed to be somewhere else? Elijah had a job to do. He had a job to do. And the Lord was telling him, it is time. It is time to do this job. This one last thing, I want you to do this. Go and anoint Jehu as king. The Lord was about to wreak vengeance on Ahab and Jezebel. The question is, what is your excuse? What is your impediment? Is it something real? Or is it something that you use to get out of certain situation? Your impediment may not be something that prevents you from accomplishing what you need to accomplish. This dish, it is not perfect. It has flaws, but it is perfect. It is perfect because I can put some rice in it. I can put some soup in it. I can put vegetables in it. It works just fine as a container. But if you look at it, it is not perfect. It is flawed. But it is good and it is perfect for its use. So from today, I would like us to take another look of ourselves, take an introspection, and ask yourself, not what is my impediment, but how can I use my impediment to further the work of the Lord? I think the other night when we had the Jacob's night, I think it was Gabriel who mentioned about a lady, but the story was about this lady who could not read at all, but she was able to use her impediment to spread the good news of salvation to the people in the village. So those who could have read, she didn't care that she could not read. What she did was that she took a step to Christ, and she took it to her neighbors, and she asked them to read it for her. So every day, they will read one chapter for her. One chapter, until the book is finished. And then she takes the book to another person. Could you read this for me? Because they knew that she could not read. And so they did not chase her away. They read the book for her. And while reading for her, they themselves was being touched by the messages that was in the book. Her impediment did not prevent her from being a witness. She took her impediment and used it the best way she could. She couldn't say, oh, I cannot read, I cannot do. No. She was smart. I can't read, but you can. Read it for me. I will listen. And that way she was able to witness and see folks being baptized into Christ. Yes. So do not make excuses. And this dish doesn't make excuse. Oh, I am imperfect. I am not symmetrical. No. As I said, I never noticed this dish until I was washing it one day. What? It is flawed. But again, you would never see flaw. You will never see fault. You will never see failure unless you're looking for it. May God bless you.